Hello and welcome to the Ripple Podcast.
The podcast where we tell you stories about strange and unusual things.
And the ripples they create.
AKA the story after the story.
I'm Rosa.
And I'm Angela.
And this is the Ripple Podcast.
Get Ripple, the bright new drink with that ring-a-ding flavor, Ripple.
Okay, so you sent me this text message the other day, and I don't think I even responded to it because I knew we had to talk about it on the podcast. So,
Text message.
yeah. So, if you remember from last week, we talked about hauntings and how I saw the ghost family.
Yes.
And then you went home and talked to Nick about it.
Yeah. So I come home and I go, yeah, our recording went well. This is what we talked about.
Went well.
Well, it
goes as well as it can.
It was fun. It was
it's
a
always
fun
a
recording.
good time.
And I was like, yeah, we each told stories about our personal encounters with spirits or ghosts. And I told my story about how you and I, referring to Nick or talking to Nick, heard the ghost at Mom and Dad's house. And then Angela told the story about how she saw the ghost family on the street and what they were waving to her. And he's like, oh, yeah, I saw a ghost family on that street waving to me. And I was like, wait, what? How long have we been married? And he's like, yeah.
How is that something that he fails to mention to
Well,
you?
he says he's told me before.
And you forgot?
I mean, it's possible that he tells me things and I don't listen. I mean, that may have happened once or twice before, but I feel like I'd remember that.
Yeah.
But it was funny because he's like, yeah, there were 3 of them. It was a mom, a dad, and a kid. And they were, and this is before I explained your story.
Okay.
Like your thing. He's like, yeah, and they were dressed like Victorian. I think he said the word Victorian.
See, mine were not.
I think that's what he said, like old timey. And he said that they were standing like in a row. And I can't remember now if he said it was a little boy or a little girl, but he said for sure it was a mom, a dad, and a kid. And they were standing by the road waving at him. And I go, well, what the heck? Why didn't you stop and see what it was? He's like, because it freaked me out.
Yeah, right? I mean, it would be great if you could, but it's scary. Was it in the middle of the night too, or late at night?
It was late at night.
Were they glowing?
He said they were glowing. I mean, he said they were ghosts. I mean, they were glowing.
Well, at least they're friendly.
They're waving. They're saying, hey, what's up?
So crazy. Oh my gosh, I have to talk to him about that now.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
And this is back when, we were dating. So quite a while ago.
So this was before any sort of plane crash then. So that's completely unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys were married when that happened.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a portal there. One time when I was driving down that road, it wasn't super late at night, but it was after dark. There was straight up a pentagram drawn on the road in
road?
Salt. Yeah, it wasn't drawn on spray paint, but in salt or something.
Oh, that's creepy.
And candles lit up all around it.
Shut up. On that same road?
Yeah. And the people who were doing whatever sort of pentagram thing they were doing were hanging out there. They were still there.
Oh. Was one of them related to us?
I don't think so, no.
Oh.
I think I would have stopped and said hi if that were the case. But it was really bizarre. So, yeah.
I asked him, where did you see the family? And he said, after, kind of by where the row crops are is where he described it.
Okay, so the northern part of the road.
Sure.
Oh, interesting.
Where did you see them?
Other side of the road and more towards the middle.
Weird.
So crazy. We need to go do a ghost hunt there.
I'll take my little spirit box out.
Yes. We'll go talk to them.
We are Pod Jerky, 2 Canadian buddies serving up multi-flavored audio jerky in every episode. If you like good times, strong coffee, maple syrup, swamp donkeys, hockey, the outdoors, common sense, dogs, conspiracy theories, sports, and life in general, then subscribe and follow our podcast and check out our social media channel at PodJerky. PodJerky. Make it a double.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I brought you a beer.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
fun
Drinks.
summertime beer since we're officially like summertime.
I remember this from last summer.
Hell or High Watermelon.
Yum.
So yummy. It's a wheat beer with hints of watermelon. I forget where this one's brewed. It's a seasonal release.
That is good.
Isn't it delicious?
It's
like
so light. I could
so
drink way
good.
too much of this. It doesn't say anywhere.
At
least not on the
San
can.
Leandro, California.
Oh, okay. Cool. California beer.
I don't know where that is though.
Neither do I.
California's a big place.
Yeah.
But the can's super cool. It's got like the Statue of Liberty sitting on the San Francisco Bridge, Brooklyn
Golden
Bridge.
Gate. I think it's a Golden Gate.
Okay. Eating watermelon. It's fantastic.
Yep.
All right.
So
I'm so ready for you to tell me a story while I just sit back and drink.
I feel like there's so much pressure. I've got to hold this whole episode together.
It's all on your shoulders.
Okay.
I have
well,
faith in you, little sister.
Let's do the thing. So I pulled the topic strange disappearances. And I am actually going to tell you two stories about two different strange disappearances that have some eerie connections.
Oh, cool. I like stuff like that.
Yeah, you can play the matching game. This is actually, the first story is a story that Adam told me about. And I was like listening to it. He showed me like this little clip on YouTube. I'm like, whoa, that sounds so familiar. And then I remembered another story, and it's very, very bizarre. So first, let me tell you my sources.
Gotcha.
I'm having trouble already.
That's all right.
I have Wikipedia, Unsolved Mysteries, Media, Entertainment, Arts, Worldwide, Idaho News,
Uh-oh.
Clue TV, which is KLEW.
It was like
Blue's
the game.
Oh,
The board game Clue.
no, I think it's a radio station in Idaho, and Washington Post.
Okay.
Okay,
We have some listeners in Idaho.
I know.
We've got a few of them.
Yeah, we're pretty popular in Idaho.
We
Pretty
are?
big. So,
We have. Did we talk about our Canadian listener?
I think we did.
We have a couple,
I don't know.
listeners in Canada now.
Yeah, we got the Canadians. We have some Irish listeners. We have some Italian listeners.
Woot woot.
And we've got quite a few states going on.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But make sure you're spreading the love, friends. We got to think of a name for our Ripple listeners.
We do.
Ripple.
I don't know. That's going to take some homework.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Story number 1 is about Lars Mittack or Mittack. It's spelled T-A-C-K like tack, but I think it's pronounced Mittack.
Okay.
Okay. So on January 30th, 2014, German native 28-year-old Lars Mittack traveled to the seaside resort of Golden Sands, Bulgaria, vacationing with a group of friends. So it's like a bunch of dudes got together, almost like a spring break type of thing. They just went to party and drink and have a good time. Apparently it's like a destination place. I think it's almost like Vegas.
Really?
That's the way it was described. Yeah.
Huh. I don't think I know anyone that has been there.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the place where the Germans like to go and kick back.
Okay.
So on July 6, 2014, I'm going to call him Lars because I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Lars and his friends were at a sports bar and they're watching football, aka soccer, when they got into an argument with 4 other guys who were fans of a rival team.
Okay.
So, of course, you're drinking, you're heckling each other, whatever. I mean, you've got to be drunk to watch sports anyway. So,
And you're passionate about that team.
yeah. So, they got into an argument. So, the group of friends, they just drank until closing time. And then they made their way to McDonald's, as you do. And somewhere along the line, Lars got separated from the rest of the group, which, like, I've been there. And when his friends found him, he had been beaten up like pretty badly, and apparently it was by the rivaling fans from the bar. And he was hit in the head, and he had a ruptured eardrum, which ouch. So they went and they got some sort of medical treatment, and the doctor prescribed Lars with an antibiotics called Cephroxim 500, and was told that he should probably hang out there longer before he gets on a flight back home, because obviously when
the
you
pressure.
it's really just going to mess things up. They actually thought that he might even need surgery, but he didn't want to get surgery in a foreign country. He wanted to like wait and be able to go home and get it taken care of there.
Oh, I'd hate that.
So the rest of the group agreed to stay with him, but he insisted that he'd be okay. He's just going to hang out a little longer.
Those are really nice friends.
Yeah. And then just like, go ahead and fly home without me. And I guess at the same time, you have your hotel reserved for however long you're going to stay there. And this is like the party season. It's holiday season.
Oh,
So he had to go to like a discount hotel, like
whatever was open.
Right. And he just stayed at this place close to the airport. But at the time, his friends described him as like relaxed and in a good mood, like seemed to be in good spirits, like whatever, I'm just going to hang out for a little bit longer. So he ends up going to this cheaper hotel called Hotel Color, which was near the Varna airport. And this is when shit gets really weird. So shortly before midnight, Lars calls his mom and said that something isn't right in the hotel. He tells her to cancel his credit cards. And that was just like the end of the conversation. Like, something's going on. Just please, I don't feel right about this hotel. Please cancel my credit cards. And
okay, that's strange.
And there's this CCTV footage of him in the hotel, and he's pacing up and down the halls. He's looking through the windows. He's hiding in the elevator.
Like
kind of
paranoid.
Yeah, kind of like, what was her name? Elisa Lam. Remember her?
And those weird videos?
Where she's playing the elevator game. And
yeah.
So it's kind of like that. So eventually he just decides, like he seems super paranoid. He decides to pack up his belongings and leave the hotel. A few hours later, Lars calls his mom again, but this time he's whispering. And he says he's being followed by 4 men but he found a place to hide for the night. And a few hours later, again, he texts his mom asking what is CFC 500, which is the antibiotics he was prescribed.
Oh, shit. Like someone dosed him.
That's what he was thinking. I mean, we don't know for sure, but that's kind of like what's implied. Like, oh, shit, maybe something wasn't right with this medication.
See, my first thought was like a brain bleed or something.
From getting hit in the head? Yeah, I mean, maybe. It's definitely a possibility.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh, how scary.
Right? So once the sun comes up, Lars takes a cab to the airport. Later, the taxi driver reports that Lars had dilated pupils, and he kind of thought like, okay, maybe this guy's on drugs. Once he got to the airport, Lars calls his mom again to let him know that he's there, but she's still like worried about the way he's acting and the fact that he has this ear issue. So she insists that he goes to the medical staff before boarding his flight. And when the physician examined him, she said that he appeared to be kind of nervous and erratic, and he was very mistrustful of the drugs that he had been prescribed. And side note, at the time, the airport itself was undergoing renovations, so there was a construction crew there. And during the examination, Lars sees a construction worker entering the clinic, and then he says, I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here.
He's just losing it.
Yeah. He then gets up, he leaves all of his luggage behind, and he sprints out of the clinic. Yeah. So he goes through the terminal and he goes out into the street. He pauses for like a few seconds, looks around, and then he continues to sprint across the road to the airport fence, which was 8 feet tall.
No.
Barbed wire at the top. He scales the fence and continues to run into the wooded area, and he has never been seen since.
So he left all of his belongings behind. Did that include his cell phone?
He left his phone, his wallet, and his passport in his backpack. What about his
medication that he was prescribed?
Yeah, I think he left it there too. And I remember reading somewhere, but I'm not sure if this can be confirmed or not, but he didn't take it.
Like all of the pills were there?
Yeah.
So it was probably something in his head.
Maybe. So the following day, the police searched the area. They're using drones. They're using search dogs. They were unable to find any signs of Lars. And the crazy thing is, and this is why this story I think it's so popular, is because all of this CCTV footage is on YouTube.
Oh, weird.
So you can watch him. He's walking in. He's wearing like this yellow shirt and shorts and like white shoes. He's pulling his like suitcase, his roller case. He has a backpack on. You see him go up to the counter, and he's probably asking like for the medical clinic or whatever. And he walks away, and then it flashes to him, and he's like sprinting through the airport. So wild.
Did his friends ever say like they were partying like, and like doing drugs and stuff?
I don't think that they ever said that they were doing any drugs. No. So.
And how old was he when this happened?
He was 28 years old.
Okay. Because I know someone that a guy, and he went away for like a weekend with a bunch of buddies, same thing, to like a festival of some sort. And they did a bunch of drugs. And on the way home, you know, a couple of the guys were like coming off of the drugs they had done. But this one guy never fully recovered.
Oh, God.
And what it is, I mean, there was schizophrenia in his family.
I've heard this, yeah.
And he was around that age. I think he was like 25, 26 at the time, which is a common age for guys to, like, schizophrenia to be, I don't want to use the word, like, triggered, but, like, kind of come out. But he's never, I mean, he's almost 40 now. And
he's never fully recovered?
He's never fully recovered.
Wow. I've heard that too, where certain drugs can kind of, if you already are prone to it, it can kind of bring it out, which is super scary.
So I wonder if that's something similar as well with this guy.
Well, we will talk about that in my theories
section. I'm so jumping ahead.
Okay, so that was story number 1 about Lars. Super crazy. I mean, there's so many different elements going on. There's the rival team. There's the head injury. There's possibility of drugs, like all these different crazy things.
Yeah.
The wild part about it, too, is as I always do when I'm doing these stories, of course I have to go on Google Earth and look up this airport. The wooded area isn't that big. Like it's the airport. I mean, think about airports around here. It's mostly surrounded by like a town, and then you have like a little bit of a wooded area, and then as you get further out, it goes into like agricultural fields. So maybe he ended up like getting into a field somewhere. It's just really bizarre. Like it's weird that you couldn't find him,
or what was left of him. Okay, say it was like 3 weeks later and he died, but there's never been any found skeletal
and
remains.
That was, I think, 2014. Yeah, 2014. So never been seen since.
Wow, that's really sad.
It is very sad. So let me tell you another really sad story.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Let me open another beer.
Oh, wow. That's a bad part about doing this whole episode on my own. 27-year-old Terrence Woods is... Wait, why are you looking at me?
I'm trying to figure out, is Terrence a male or female?
A male.
Okay.
He was from Capitol Heights, Maryland, and he was working a freelance job for a London-based raw TV production company. They're popular for a Discovery Channel show Gold Rush, and you haven't seen Gold Rush?
Are you being serious?
Yeah. It's pretty popular.
No.
Okay, so there's Gold Rush, which is what he was working for.
What channel is this on?
Discovery Channel.
I mean, I don't have TV.
Neither do I, but I feel like it's something anytime you go to a hotel and you flip on TV, you see Gold Rush.
Why I started kind of giggling when you said that, and made me think of like that Huell Hausner show. That's amazing.
California Gold.
That's what it made me think of. But no,
that's a gem. Okay, so he's working for this production company that was on the Discovery Channel for Gold Rush. Okay, so he had this shoot that he had to do, and it required Terrence to go back out to the western United States, specifically Montana and Idaho, for several weeks.
Idaho again?
Idaho again? What? This is the Idaho.
Oh.
No, we were in Germany and Bulgaria before.
I thought he originally lived in Idaho.
Oh, no, he's from Maryland.
Oh, I don't know. Whatever.
Okay, so he has to go to Idaho. Yeah. We'll get back to Idaho in a little bit. Okay, so he has to work on that for several weeks. And he would be there from like October to November. So Terrence was sent to meet up with 11 other crew members before heading to the Oro Grande area of Idaho to film an episode on the Penman Mine. Okay, so before heading to Idaho, Terrence spends time with his parents and siblings in Maryland, just kind of catching up with them. And at this time, he expresses that after he's done with this job, he wants to look for something more local, and he doesn't really want to travel that much anymore because remember, he was living in London for a while. So on September 30th, his dad, Terrence Sr., drives him to the airport to start this job. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a timeline of what happens after that. So after landing, Terrence texts his dad some pictures of the area, and he seems to be in good spirits. At 10:58 p.m., Terrence sent his dad a text that read, "Hey, Dad, just got to the hotel in Idaho." And then at 12:58 a.m., Terrence texts his dad a video of a serene river cutting its way through a rocky canyon. The video had like no text or description to it.
Just a pretty video.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people like look into that and kind of think, okay, like he was up really late. He wasn't sleeping. He's just like, it's kind of weird, bizarre, ominous sort of video that he sent. But I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes when you're like trying to send a big file and you have spotty service,
It doesn't send until a lot later.
yeah.
Have
right?
you been to my house?
Yeah.
Drive down the
I
driveway
mean-
and you have cell service. If you're in past the driveway,
So
you lose all service. Yeah.
I don't really like give that much merit.
Mm-hmm.
So at 3 a.m., Terrence calls his dad to tell him that he made it to the like filming location. Not much more was said, and his dad said like, okay, just call me later and we'll talk later. So the film crew was using Elk City, Idaho as the base of their operation. At 5:44 a.m., Terrence texts his dad again and said, "I'm coming home Wednesday the 10th." And this was October 10th, what he was referring to. And this would be cutting the trip short by several weeks, something that Terrence never did. So it's almost like something happened.
Okay.
Terrence was supposed to be in Idaho working on the documentary until the end of November. Okay, so at 3 p.m., Terrence Sr. texts Terrence back, kind of like asking what's going on.
Sure. Yeah.
But at this time, the crew was already on the scene, and they were in a remote area a few hours away from the hotel and base camps. They had no cell service. So Terrence Sr. isn't sure if Terrence ever saw that text message. So October 5th, during the last day of filming, some of the crew stated that Terrence seemed kind of distant. They noticed that he was having a hard time doing things that he had a lot of experience doing, like selecting lenses for the cameras. And at one point, he attempted to grab a drone in mid-flight,
Oh, geez.
which I guess, I don't know, maybe like some drones you can do that, but this is definitely not one that you could do that to. And he could have potentially like cut up his hands and fingers if the members, like the other crew members, didn't stop him. So he was kind of making small talk with some of the locals, and he told one person that he was estranged from his family, but he had plans to make amends when he returned home, which is really weird because in reality, he was very close to his family.
And this was a crew member that he told it to?
That was not a crew member. That was like a local that they were filming.
But a crew member overheard it? How did they get that information?
From the local who was there,
Mm-hmm.
like one of the miners, I guess.
Okay.
And again, I don't know if I said this, but like the crew, the whole film crew of the 11 other people, they didn't know each other before this. They were just kind of like all sent to work on this project together.
So they didn't know their past relationships.
Right.
Okay.
They don't have any like
Work history.
Exactly. So after they finished up for the day, Terrence was chatting again with a local when he excused himself to like take a leak off of a cliff.
Oh.
I mean,
Classy.
there's probably no bathrooms out there. So he walks to the edge of an approximately 15-foot embankment. But instead of peeing, he drops his two-way radio to the ground and he goes over the edge.
Shut up.
So several notice the radio being dropped and they run over to the embankment thinking that Terrence fell. But when they look over the edge, they see him sprinting down the hill and into the woods.
What?
So, of course, everyone starts yelling and like, oh my gosh, where are you going? What are you doing? But he doesn't respond. He just keeps just bolting. One of the crew members went after him, but after chasing him for a while, he was afraid that he was only making it worse and like making Terrence like continue to run even further.
Sure, like you're chasing like a scared dog.
Exactly. So some of the crew members get into ATVs and
Yeah.
they drive around to this like parallel road to kind of like cut him off. And then other members of the crew get in the truck and they have to drive to the nearest house in the area because they have no cell service. So once they're there, they call 911. So at 6:41 p.m., this is the 911 call log transcript, and it read, "Advise that male Terrence Woods, 27, from London, works for a TV company who is creating a movie in the area of Penman Mine. Never been in woods, no guns. Terrence has been having a really hard time emotionally and had a mental breakdown earlier today. Dark complexion, light clothes. Terrence is not going to respond back to responders per report. Terrence does not have communication. There are people searching for him now." So the Idaho police begin searching the 8,500 square miles of forest.
Oh, no.
They searched by air, they searched by horseback, ATV, on foot with search dogs. The air team was unfortunately grounded after encountering snow and rain later that day. So the ground crew, they encountered like super thick brush, down trees. It was like nearly unwalkable. So it's crazy to think that somebody just like took off on foot and ran through this area. Unprepared, just like bolted, took off. After a week of the search, they had to scale back and eventually call it off. Sheriff Doug Gidding was later quoted saying, "What are you supposed to do for someone who doesn't want to be found?"
Wow.
So that's the story of Terrence Woods.
Okay.
Wild, right?
Yeah. Nutty.
Yeah. Super crazy. And the weird thing is, okay, so on both of these stories, we have males in their late 20s. They both they appear to have like things like going fairly well for them.
Well, and they both seem like they have, a family that cares about them. Because, one is calling his mom, the other's texting his dad. Like, so they have people that are back home, that they have relationships with.
Absolutely.
Terrence sounds like an amazing job.
He's super
traveling
successful.
And, sounds like a dream job. Yeah.
It's bizarre. So crazy. So, yeah. So they're both males in their late 20s. They both were staying in a hotel the night before. So they're both like in an area that they didn't live. They both just seem to have trouble sleeping the night before.
Okay.
So you've got Terrence, who has to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. He may or may not have been up at like 1 when he was sending that video to his dad.
Right.
And then you have Lars, who was just acting like he was afraid of somebody following him. So both those things happening. Both of them are texting their parents the entire time, which, like you said, it shows that there's some sort of connection. They both exhibited kind of strange and unusual behaviors right before all of this happened.
Right.
And they both intended on flying home shortly after wherever they were staying. And they both sprinted into the wilderness, never to be seen again.
Did anyone ever confirm Terrence's story about wanting or coming home early? Like, had he actually changed his flight? Had he confirmed that with the crew? Or was that just a weird message that was sent?
So the thing about that, and I didn't mention it because I wasn't sure how long my stories would go, but his mom was having some like health issues, and she was supposed to do a test. She had to go to the hospital to do some sort of test. I don't know what kind of test it was, whether it was a biopsy, blood test, I don't know. And Terrence was aware of that. And so people are thinking that he wanted to leave early to be with her during that test.
Sure.
But other people there at the scene that day, they heard Terrence say that his mom was having a serious surgery, which wasn't the truth. So whether he just like exaggerated to like make it,
like
more plausible to go home. Other theories too are that when he was acting weird and not doing what he was supposed to do for his job, like grabbing the wrong camera lenses and just like not performing to his ability, people think that like maybe he had an indication that he was going to be fired. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's stuff that people are kind of.
But maybe he was just distracted. Like maybe he was stressed out about his mom's procedure or test.
But then why wouldn't you just go home? That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
Like sprint your way into the airport
instead of away
into the
from
forest.
it.
So really weird. So here are some of the theories, and a lot of these theories can be put onto both stories. Like there's connections to both of them.
Okay.
So the first one being foul play.
Mm-hmm.
So Lars stated that he was being followed. Some people speculate that these guys from the bar were continuing to follow him after he was beaten up. I guess Bulgaria is an area that has a lot of drug trafficking. It has a lot of human trafficking. It's got a pretty high crime rate. There's a lot of organized crime and like mafia type stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't want to go there then. Scary.
But to me, like it doesn't seem likely. Like you don't get into a bar fight over a football game and then like, oh, I'm going to track this guy down. You know, it just doesn't seem like worth the time, worth the risk.
And I think if his buddies would have thought, like, these guys are going to come back and kick your ass again, we're definitely not going home. Like a protection type thing.
Exactly. And then other people say, well, maybe the buddies had some sort of part in it. So if they're doing some sort of drug trafficking and taking drugs from Bulgaria back to Germany, they're saying, like, well, maybe Lars had to stay behind, like, as
collateral. Oh, I finally said a word that you
collateral.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, again, it doesn't seem likely to me because, like, if you're involved in some sort of drug trafficking, I would imagine that you would want to stay away from hospitals, stay away from the medical center.
And
like,
you're probably not going to be texting your mom frequently.
I don't know. That just, it doesn't track with me.
Yeah.
So with Terrence, some of his family are questioning the film crew and if they had any sort of involvement because just the story doesn't make sense. Like somebody doesn't just sprint off into the forest. So they're thinking like, well, maybe he got hurt or got killed on the scene.
Okay.
And this is a cover. And also the sheriff is saying like, we've looked and looked and looked. The guy's not out there.
Okay. For that part, if it's, what was it, like 8,000 acres?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've looked for people in 3 acres and not found them. So, like,
I don't know.
Like he said, if someone is hiding and doesn't want to be found, like you and I we've talked about this before. We've been out on searches looking for people. You know, when we were looking for that lady, the older lady that had Alzheimer's. You know, people looked right where she was many times.
Yeah.
And they looked practically right over her.
Mm-hmm.
But she was buried in leaves. She was fine, by the way, for those of you that are worried about this sweet lady.
Yeah.
But days and days she was missing. And people, I don't know. I feel like if someone wants to not be found, they're going to make it so they can't be found.
And then to the theory of maybe the film crew having something to do with this and making up the story. In order for that to be plausible, that entire crew of 11 people who never knew each other before working on this job would all have to agree on the same lie.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what's the benefit to them? There's none to lie about this.
Right.
So, and then not only that, but like the locals who also witnessed him take off, like they have no dog in the fight. Like they don't care.
Buy that.
No, so I don't buy that one either. So here is the fun one. This is the paranormal theory.
Oh, yes. Bring it on.
So there's these 2 phenomena that people reference when they are talking about like these weird sprinting into the woods sort of thing. One is called the call of the void, and the other is called panic in the woods.
Both really good band names.
That's what I wrote down.
Shut.
Look at my paper. Look, both would make really great band names.
You know we're related.
Okay, so the first one is the call of the void. And this is something that I experience regularly. In fact, I experienced it today driving home from work. I was on the 101 and I was driving right along the ocean pretty much, like right next to the one.
Okay.
And the call of the void is when you have a feeling of what if I just drive off the road? Or what if I just steer my car into the semi truck? Or what? Why are you laughing at me? It's not funny.
Don't have those thoughts.
You've never been to like the top of a building or a cliff and you're like, what if I just jump right now?
This is horrible. Mine are a lot of the time, what if I just push this person?
Okay, that does not work for this phenomenon.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not the same.
I'll have to edit that part out.
Well, no, maybe it would. Okay, let's think about it. So most people have felt this at least once in their life, but they ignore this feeling.
oh, sure. Yeah.
Not everyone ignores this feeling, especially if you already have suicidal tendencies. So,
Which is a band name, by the way.
oh, that is, oh my gosh. Speaking of which, so, and this goes back to like drugs, but one time I was on the Ventura Pier and I was, this is back before like everybody was connected to their cell phone 24/7. And I was supposed to meet some of my friends. I was in high school. And we're like, okay, meet at the taco shack at the pier at this time. So I get there first and I'm just like hanging out and I'm like looking over the edge, looking at the water. And this guy comes up to me and starts talking to me and like making small talk. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I could clearly tell like he was in his own little world.
Sure.
And he told me, he's like, hey, have you ever heard of suicidal tendencies? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm the drummer. I'm like,
Sure
no
you are.
way. I mean, who knows? I don't know. And he's like, I'm also God. And I'm just going along with it. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. And he's like, yeah, isn't it beautiful? Like the ocean, the sky. Man, it's just such a beautiful day I created.
Oh,
like,
I love him.
and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's
Oh.
great.
I love him.
I mean, who can prove him otherwise, right?
Sure.
Like, you never know.
Drummer from Suicidal and God
What if
all in
God
one.
was one of us.
Just a slob like one of us.
Oh,
Tell me some more.
okay. So, according to April Smith, a psychology professor, this whole call of the void thing. It's actually your brain warning you of potential danger, and by recognizing the danger, you react by like just taking note of it. Like say you're standing
Acknowledging.
Right. So say you're standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're against the rail and you take a step back and you're like, I know there's railing there, but I must have wanted to jump because I took a step back.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
But actually that's your brain
Protection
just
mode.
like recognizing. So you didn't really want to jump.
But you were.
It's like this slingshot of reactions going on in your brain. Does that make sense?
Slightly.
Slightly.
It's a way of like protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what it comes down to is everybody has these feelings at one point or another. Some people act on them if they're in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one theory.
Call of the Void.
Call of the Void.
Super great bad name.
Maybe it could be a podcast name. Screw the ripple.
I like the ripple. Get ripple.
It makes me have to pee.
Blub, blub.
Okay, so the next phenomenon is Panic in the Woods.
Panic at the Disco.
And this one I think I may have experienced as well.
Oh, geez.
I know, right?
Let's hear it.
So this is a phenomenon that causes someone who's often in an unfamiliar place, such as the woods or in the desert or just like anywhere that you're really not familiar with, to suddenly feel out of nowhere just this panic. And then oftentimes you have this buzzing sound in your ear that kind of like deafens everything else, like blocks all of the noises around you.
It's anxiety. It's like a panic attack.
It is, but it's like a special kind of panic attack.
Okay.
It's like a special edition, limited edition panic attack. So sometimes this experience is accompanied by a feeling of dark or sinister forces nearby. And people think that like this may be a primitive instinct from a hunter-gatherer days. So like when you're out in the forest collecting berries or hunting rabbits or whatever, it's like a sensation that, oh, there might be predators around. Like I need to be careful.
I need to hide or I need to run or
Hide from a bear.
uh-huh. Okay, I'm totally on board with this. Panic at the Woods.
Panic in the woods.
Panic at the
You
Woods.
think that was it? That's what happened?
Well, no, I possibly.
I kind of don't.
Okay, keep going.
So I don't really go for that one either because both times they're surrounded by other people, and typically this is something that happens when you're all alone. I mean, I guess like if you're with a bunch of people that you're not familiar with, you could feel alone, but I don't know.
Okay, Terrence. I could
Yes.
see this happening more for Terrence versus Lars.
Because Lars was at an airport terminal.
Yeah, I think Lars was drug induced
Oh, see, I think Lars had a brain injury.
or a combination.
Yeah. I don't know. So those are the two. I feel like I've experienced the panic in the woods before.
I know I have. Hello. Yeah.
But
Anxiety is my middle name.
We're experts in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now finally, the not as fun but most likely explanation for both of our two vanished people. Psychosis. And this is what you've been saying all along. So most likely they had a psychotic break. And this is information from the National Alliance on Mental Health about signs of early or first time experiences of psychotic episodes. So I'm going to read you a list of things and we can kind of decide, like, we can play doctor and diagnose these people.
Perfect. I have an MD.
Yeah. So determining exactly when the first episode of psychosis begins can be hard because the signs and symptoms strongly indicate that an episode of psychosis. That sentence didn't even make sense, did it?
Did either of their parents or family or friends say that there was a history?
No, none.
They said there wasn't?
There's no history. Yeah, so the only thing that they can kind of connect is that Terrence actually had a journal. And in his journal, he wrote about the Great Reset. But again, he said he wanted to come home from London. He said he wanted to find a new job. He wanted to have like a more traditional family sort of setting. So to me, a Great Reset isn't running off into the forest.
No.
Like that just, it doesn't connect.
Well, no, that doesn't make sense. And if there was no history and in the family, like maybe no history for them, but even in the family.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. I don't know if you remember, but I don't even remember what this topic was, but a while ago I did the story on the guy that hid, he was missing and he hid like in the basement in his house, or like the crawl space, and it was like frozen.
Wait,
Remember
you did
that?
a story about this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Yes, this one actually was a story I did. I can't remember what his name was. I'll have to look it up.
What episode was it? What was our topic?
That's what I'm saying. I don't remember. We should have a poster in here of all the topics we've done because I don't even remember.
I don't remember this.
Our titles. Yeah, and the dad found him.
Yeah. I think that's another lost episode.
Oh, really?
I think so.
We haven't released that?
Right. I don't think we ever released that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
almost positive we didn't.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have to redo that one because that was interesting.
It was.
I mean, I just totally spoiled the ending right now. But
That's fine.
But that's kind of this. But he had a history.
Right.
That guy that hid and wanted to stay hidden, he had a history of mental illness.
Yeah, and the thing is, from what I read, well, the one thing that's kind of hard is that Lars, a lot of their stuff is in German. So unless there's a translated article or I can hit Google Translate, I really don't know a lot about that.
Sure.
Terrence, his family is very, very outspoken because they are still on a mission to find out what happened to him. And there's nothing that I could find that indicated that they had any sort of history or inkling or anything at all that would make them think, oh, well, maybe he did, intentionally do this. So some of the things that are symptoms of a psychotic episode. So hearing, seeing, tasting, or believing things that others don't.
Okay.
So that could definitely be Lars if he thought that people were following him.
Or ghosts.
Ghosts?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, it's a possibility. Persistent, unusual thoughts or beliefs that can't be set aside regardless of what others believe. Strong and inappropriate emotions or no emotion at all. Withdrawing from family or friends.
Which neither of them did.
No. A sudden decline in self-care, which it happened so quickly you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Trouble thinking clearly or concentrating.
Well, and that was obviously Lars.
Well, and then also Terrence, because he couldn't find the lenses, and he tried to grab the drone, and he was just distant. So I mean, you could kind of make those connections, possibly.
Sure.
Psychosis includes a range of symptoms, but typically involves one of these two major experiences. That would be hallucinations and delusions. So hallucinations are seeing, hearing, or feeling things that aren't there, such as voices, sensations, or unexplainable feelings, glimpses of objects or people that aren't there. So just basically like all of your senses reacting when they shouldn't be reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And then delusions are strong beliefs that are not consistent with the person's culture and are unlikely to be true and seem irrational to others. And that could include believing external forces are controlling their thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, believing that trivial remarks, events, or objects have personal meanings or significance.
Like pointing the finger at them, even when it's not.
Yeah, like, why are you reading my mind? I know you're reading my mind. Can you stop reading my mind?
Wow.
Knock it off. Like stuff like that. Thinking that you have special powers or you're on a special mission or that you're even God.
Okay.
Like my suicidal tendencies friend.
Sure. But it doesn't sound like Lars or Terrence had either of any of those things.
It's so hard to tell. It really is.
There was...
It's just, it's like these stories are so especially frustrating for me because when people disappear and you can see the moments that they're leaving, they're so close. They're just outside of your grasp. Mm-hmm. And you want so desperately to like make these connections and figure out what happened to them. And of course, I mean, you should know by now that we're joking when we're talking about like diagnosing these people. We have absolutely no authority whatsoever to do anything like that. But it's just kind of like, what was it? You know, there's that like fascination.
We want to fix
need.
it. We want to find out the answer.
Yeah. So it's really sad. And like you mentioned before, genetics often contribute to the development of psychosis. But just because a person has a gene, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll experience psychosis. And ongoing studies will help better understand these genes as they play a role in psychosis. So like at this point, like they're not even 100% sure
what causes it.
Right. So trauma can also
which
trigger.
Lars had major.
Yeah, absolutely. And this I actually think is more psychological trauma.
Oh, okay.
So we don't know. I mean, that's another thing. Like, we don't know
their
what happens.
History, sure.
Substance abuse, like you mentioned. And then, of course, physical illness or injury, traumatic brain injury, which,
there you go.
I mean, very well could have happened to Lars. Brain tumors, strokes, HIV, some brain diseases such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia can sometimes cause psychosis. And then, of course, other mental health conditions. There's Rosa's alarm, just like every single episode ever. Other mental health conditions, sometimes psychosis is a symptom of a condition, of course, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and bipolar disorder, or even depression.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't exactly a ripple. They're more like side stories parallel to each other.
Yeah.
But isn't it it's so weird to me that they're within a couple of years of each other, you have these two guys right around the same age that just bolt.
I wonder if, I mean, I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more stories like that. I don't know. I didn't know of either of these stories.
Yeah. There's just, it's so weird to me. And like you said, anxiety oftentimes gives you this fight or flight reaction.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I know when I've experienced anxiety, like I cannot sit still. I need to move. I need to get out of wherever I am. I'm trying to run from something and there's nothing even there. So I could see how you could be in a position where you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to run.
I need out. I need out.
How do you disappear?
That's it. That's what I don't understand. Yeah.
Too.
Like, because even if, I mean, luckily my anxiety has always ended. Like, I don't know if there is such a thing as where you never like come out of the panic attack or the anxiety. So you would think, okay, so say these guys are having panic attacks or anxiety and they're just jamming because they can't deal with what is happening in front of them.
Yeah.
You'd think, okay, they're going to come out of it.
Right. You're going to run, you're going to, you know, get exhausted, whatever. So you're going to stop, you're going to like collect yourself and you're like, okay, you know,
I can come and deal for a little bit now.
But to run so fast and so far that you're gone.
And to leave the radio and to leave your cell phone and your passport and like to just drop all communication, all safety. Because I feel like too, when I've had anxiety, like I'm in a bad place, but I'm also aware of my surroundings to keep myself safe.
Yeah. And that's definitely something like a technique used to help you with anxiety is to take note of your surroundings.
Yeah. Oh, that's just so sad.
It really is.
And you almost wish, like, just for closure reasons, they'd find something from these people.
And there, I mean, if you go on Reddit, there's a lot of people who talk about like, okay, well, maybe they started a new life. There's people who think that they may have spotted these people, but it really can't be confirmed whether it actually happened or if somebody is just writing an elaborate story on Reddit.
Sure.
I mean, that would be the best case scenario if they somehow, some way.
Not if they had that close connection with their family.
Yeah.
You don't leave your family like that.
I don't know. I mean, it's happened.
Oh, sure.
That would be ideal with like the best of the worst, you know? I did wanted to point out that Terrence, his family is still very active in trying to find out what happened to him. At this point, the police have kind of decided to call off the search, which I noted before, but they have hired private investigators to continue to search. So if you do want to find out more about this and you want to contribute to their fund, they do have a GoFundMe, and we'll put this in the Instagram description. But it's GoFundMe/find-my-missing-son-Terrence-Woods. So I'm sure if you just Google Terrence Woods GoFundMe, you can find it. So yeah, wild, super crazy stories. Even the paranormal theories, like to me, they're not even paranormal. Those are like full on psychological. So I don't know. Sometimes your brain is even crazier and creepier than the paranormal.
Yeah. There's some inner demons for sure.
But yeah, those are my stories.
Wow, good job.
Thanks.
That's interesting. I was like on the edge of my seat there.
Yeah. I definitely went down a lot of rabbit holes. A lot of YouTube videos. Yeah, you've got to check out the video of him taking off. It's so...
Those, I mean, I get it, but those are really hard for me to watch. Kind of like 911 calls are hard for me to listen to. I've more than once had to turn off podcasts or skip forward.
Because it's just too
I can't
raw.
listen to it.
Yeah, it's really sad, but it's very interesting too. Like he's just taken over by something, but you just like at the same time you want so desperately to like somebody be like, hey, you know, like stop him and like ask if he needs help or something. But I don't know. I guess
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to hear a more feel good story?
Yes, please.
Okay, so. Are along the ways now, because like you know we said I didn't know what stories you were doing. I knew the subject matter or the theme, and that was it. So I'm gonna read you a quick little couple paragraphs that I found on the Daily News. And this was published originally July 10th, 2006, but then it was updated August 29th, 2017. And you'll know why I chose this story in a second.
Okay.
So the title is Pet Dog Found Alive Days After Plane Crash.
Oh my God.
So 6 days after a small plane crash that killed two members of a family of four, the family's missing dog was found alive by the same pair of teenage brothers who first helped the survivors, authorities said. Family and friends had been searching for a 9-year-old Dalmatian named Lindsay, who was on a plane but not found at the crash site. We were called loonies, said Bob Jansen, who, along with his wife Shirley, had spent much of the week looking for Lindsay. They told us we were searching for a dead dog. But
who would say that?
I don't know who they were, but that's what they were told.
Well, they are assholes.
Right? But then there was Renee Herrera, who was 17, and his brother Edgar, who was 15. They had returned to the Ventura County scene Friday to show friends the place where they pulled Robert and his 7-year-old son Dawson away from the plane on July 1st. The Herrera brothers and their friends saw Lindsay in a ditch. We all started running toward the dog, Renee Herrera said. We took turns cradling it like a baby, and we took it home. The dog had a ruptured diaphragm and a broken leg and underwent surgery at the Santa Barbara Animal Hospital. And then, so just, like, I loved that story. Like, and you and I both went searching for that dog.
Yeah. So if you guys remember, if you listened to our podcast last week, this is the story that I told at the end when I was talking about my ghost experiences. That's crazy.
So what was it? 9 days? I can't remember how many days they were searching.
Roughly a week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks? I don't know. But I will say that
the dog was 9.
I actually talked to Renee not that long ago. We still keep in touch. And you guys will be happy to know that he is now a firefighter.
He's
and I wonder if that inspired him to go down that career path
after that crash. He's a hero twice, 3 times if you count both people they pulled from the plane and the dog.
Yeah, and now he's a professional hero.
Yep, pretty cool. So that was a little fun story about a missing.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I wish this episode were a little bit more fun, but it's sad, but it's also like, oh my God, so crazy.
It is. It's totally crazy.
Yep. So are you ready to pull
for mine
topic?
For next week? Let me get it. Okay. So there's my my ghost meter thing in there.
Oh.
All right. So here it is. Mob mentality.
Oh. That could be so many things.
Mob mentality. Wow. Cool. Okay. So next week I will be telling the story about mob mentality. You guys know our uncle was Al Capone, right? Did we tell that story yet?
No, you can tell it next week though.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and tell your friends. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until then, don't forget to be a fountain
And not a drain.
Bye.
Bye.